Hi all, I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to solder together a 22 karat gold pendant. Okay, so Susie has done a lovely job of sort of marking where she wants her granules on her bezel. And you see these are all the other ones that are going to get soldered around it. And we decided to trim and file everything and do the connections with granules because you can do it with one big back sheet, but it's such a pain in the ass to get in there and clean it up, you know, in between all that. And I feel like it never looks as nice and clean or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah, this is just filming in New York, you know.
I don't know what is happening out there.
Damn people with their health problems interfering with our jewelry making. Who the hell do they think they are?
Priorities.
Priorities, exactly right.
That there's the one in there. I think, you know, because that's the one.
What?
You know, the number one.
It looks like a one.
Okay. Because I think for sure.
Which another thing, we did scratch little numbers inside on the bottom so that when we go to set our stones, etc., because especially when they're like almost the same but not identical, which is most of the time, you will go, you know what I mean? So we did that as a way of,
And also the wax box.
yes, because that's what we normally do is like we arrange everything in the wax box and then you can number it and apply the numbers to here. Just, you know, when you're doing these arrangements with lots of stones, things can get really confusing. So, and I love this arrangement, by the way. This orange and pink is fucking amazing. So we used 20 soft before, and when we're soldering our bezels to our back sheets, we're going to use 18 soft for all our little attachments.
Why 18?
Because it's lower than 20, so basically you start with the higher stuff, you know, and work your way down. And you can use like hard and then soft, but normally I just use the softs. They are really cooperative and you can use them over and over, so. I always just want to have some extras here. It's nothing worse than being in the middle of soldering. So I drew the crosshairs on my little solderite board to make my life easier so that it helps me to see what's straight and what isn't, or straight-ish at the very least. So I'm gonna dab a little tiny bit of flux right where I'm gonna put the little square, like so. See what I mean? So now it's right where I want it to be.
Up against, it's going up.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then the little granule gets snuggled up against it. I'm going to heat the bezel up both a little bit, but the bezel's bigger than the ball, so you always have to heat the bigger thing more when you solder. And the bigger granules, the flats are more distinct, so I'd make more of an effort to make sure that the flat is on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The little tiny ones, you don't really see it, but with a bigger one, you might kind of notice it.
It's this horizontally, it's between because they're going like that.
Oh, there's one on either side of that line?
Yes.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Important knowledge.
Just on, no, not on the up and down. It's the same. It's, I'm sorry, I confused the issue. That one's fine. It's just that those are in between. I'm sorry. Go back.
Don't be sorry. I'm just trying to make sure I'm putting them where you want them to be. That's important.
This one and that one
are straight up and down,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Believe me, the time to speak up is always before they're soldered on.
Before
so.
the solder closed.
Exactly right.
You never do the nonsense of sanding the big balls. The
I'm
flats.
sorry?
You never try to, if you're doing a big granule, you never try to sand one side flat.
There's already a side flat because that's the side that was sitting down. But I don't really want that on there like that. I want it like this with the beautiful rounded side facing forward. You know, or up, you know what I mean? No. The flat side is down on the back sheet.
Oh.
Because the most beauteous rounded side of it is what's facing up right now, straight across from the flat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I thought you were trying to put the flat against the bezel.
No.
No. Okay.
And the bezel isn't flat either, so
That's good.
That's perfect.
Susie's just trying to keep me sharp, you know. Okay, so I'm gonna keep that a little bit, and if it moves, it moves, and I poke it back in place. But then usually I'm keeping my flame relatively parallel to the block. I'm gonna be heating right here. I've got my tweezers in my hand in case something does something naughty, and if it does, I will poke it. And there you have it.
Would you turn off the flame then and then poke it? Or
I usually don't, but you
I
can.
might have to.
But I've had a lot more practice doing the double-handed soldering shenanigans. Thank you very much. So
you're putting a 0 on?
yeah, I think that's good.
I'm gonna see.
I use the one for a lot of things, but this is not so big that you need, great big tip. No. I mean me. You know what I mean? Like, because basically these handles vary a lot in how sensitive they are, and some of them are more sensitive than just like people.
That's a 1. 0.
This is 0. Okay. Dry it a little bit. Look at it. That's why I like to have my tweezers always ready, because there's always a little poking. And the beautiful marks you made there won't last past heating, but it's enough for me to get the first one on, and then we can line up the other one. But
Gotcha.
as long as it gets us started.
Are your bezels not 22? Or why are you soldering instead of fusing?
We could fuse this giant bezel, to this, but there's no reason to.
Also, it's soldered to the back sheet.
This is a soldering project, because otherwise we would have fused the bezel to the back sheet and then granulated. This is all soldered.
I see.
Okay, see that? And that's what gives you that beautiful little connection. I'm going to let Alexis do a little close-up of that, because it's pretty.
So did she solder or fuse it? Solder. Oh, she did?
I'm going to do another one in a minute if you want to
Okay,
watch.
I would like to.
So it's just a sequence that kind of changes? Like if she had put the bezel on the back sheets first, then you would have been fusing? Or?
No. There's no reason to fuse this project. It's not a granulation project.
Because it's just a few balls that are separated?
Yeah, exactly. One big fat ball does not call for fusing, because, you know what I mean? The whole point of granulation is to get that decorative, all the little granules. One big fat granule, it's like just solder it on, it's easier.
Okay.
Is it always good to put those marks on your board so that you can line things up?
Yes,
Yeah.
unless you're really good at doing it just with nothing to look at, which I don't know that I am.
Yeah.
I like to have something to look at. It helps. Because you see, then I can flip this around and do the one straight across. Okay.
And you don't have to mark your piece, right? With a Sharpie.
I
Or you?
did,
You
but
did, okay.
No, but it burns off.
Yeah.
It's only,
Yes,
it'll
yes.
only stay on there for that first whatever.
Right.
But honestly, if I can look and pretty much go, also, those marks were more for me. To see the bezel and know what she intended, so that
Right.
then I can go like, okay, even after they burn off, I know what you
Right.
had in mind. You know what I mean?
And you're using flat solder, not balls? Okay.
That is correct, because in this case, what I'm doing basically is making like a little sandwich.
Okay.
The solder is the filling.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the granule and the bezel being the bun.
But you still dip that flat solder in the flux.
Anytime you solder, you have to have flux.
Right, but you dip your solder in the flux. Not, see, we usually paint it on, and then you can't even see the project.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's why I'm asking.
Because here's the thing, and it depends on what metal you're using, because also we're working in high karat gold, which doesn't oxidize that much. So you can get away, you know, I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes it's not so much that it's like they're wrong and I'm right or vice versa. It's just like if you're using metals that oxidize a lot, maybe you need it like a lot more flux. So, you know, it depends on the scenario. But for this, it doesn't oxidize so much that I can't just put a little flux right where I want the solder to flow and then do what I need to do.
What are you making with this?
It's going to be like a flower
Pendant?
pendant.
Oh, that's going to be beautiful. So then that'll all go on a back sheet?
No, it's just going to be attached.
We're doing this
with these-
instead of a back sheet.
Oh,
with these
okay.
big.
So they'll all be attached like that with the balls. Oh, that's
It's going to be a little delicate, but I'm very careful.
These side-to-side connections are stronger than you think.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, unless you like do something truly berserker, you know. I mean, you know, but
So now you're putting a little more.
maybe a little more flux. But basically, I'm looking at top to bottom. It looks like it's on the right spot for me. Take a look. Stick your snout in there.
Perfect.
I mean, and the truth is, that oval may not be a perfect oval. Whenever you're getting things straight, you're just always trying to get it to look good. But, you know, perfect is sort of a whole emotional problem that, you know what I mean? Like, we try to get it as the best we can. Okay,
What size tip are you using? Is that a 1?
a 0.
Oh, a 0.
So, same exact thing. Heating the bezel.
Oh, the bezel.
Okay. That's why for something like this, I like using this method because you tuck it all together, you heat it. If something moves, you poke it, but it gets hot, you get that nice little connection. 0 cleanup, which you know is my goal in life. You know what I mean? I want that actually on my tombstone. 0 cleanup. Just, that's it. You know what I mean? So we'll do the other ones then. What I want you to do then is set up the one on the side. You know what I mean? And if you need help, yell. But
Okay.
okay? One at a time and solder the other ones. And guess what? We're going to do it the exact same way that we did the other ones. So I'm going to cut a few extra pieces of solder.
Can I ask you a question? Why didn't you fuse the bezel to the, if they're all 22 carat, the bezel to the balls?
Why didn't
We could have. What we would have done is fuse the bezel to a back sheet, fuse that ball, and then cut it out and trim it. So at that point, to me, the fusing is not really an advantage and not necessary for the look. You know what I mean? So
And it is a little harder, I think. Am I wrong? Fusing.
harder. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Normally for me, you only do fusing because it's necessary for the effect you want. Because no one gives you an award for doing something the hard way. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, when I'm doing a bezel to a back sheet for a ring, I'm just going to solder it. There's no reason to fuse it to the back sheet and, you know, yeah. I mean, look, everyone has their own philosophy of construction, you know what I mean, or whatever. But to me, it's like you do something for a reason. If there's no good reason to do it the hardest way, you do it the next hardest way. So I'm just going to cut some bigger pieces so that we have a few different, so we have choices. You know how I like to cut my own solder.
And so you're using 18 then?
We're using 18 all the way through. That's what I was saying before about gold solder, is that it tends to just sit there and behave itself for the most part after you float it. Not that there aren't times that you might not use ochre or heat sink or whatever, but just more than silver, like once you've put it there, you can usually reasonably count on it just behaving itself.
You're not going to use an ochre at all.
We could. I don't think I will though. If it indicates to me in any way that it's feeling like being persnickety, then we will. Yeah, it's like a stop flow. You know, so you can use ochre. We have our own blend called Noker, because we're silly. That's a little easier to remove, but yeah, just any kind of stop flow type thing. Yeah. If I'm not happy with my attachment, you know what I mean? Like after I do it, I can easily stick another piece in there. But normally what I'm trying to do is, when you're sandwiching things together, I don't want the piece of solder to be much bigger than I want the attachment to be, because I don't want to end up with a big like of solder there. So ideally, you know what I mean, it's just where they contact, and then if I wanted to beef it up afterward, maybe I'd add a little more. But because remember, I'm always going for zero cleanup if humanly possible. It's my dream in life.
Wait, I realized. Oh yeah, you know which one goes where.
Well, you notice what I did is I just separated them so that I can do one, you know what I mean, so that they're still in order,
Yes.
in other words. Okay? No, but I mean, believe me, anything you can do to make it easier and less confusing is always worth it. I'll probably end up pushing this a tiny bit to make sure that they're really touching. Because, you know, the flux kind of wiggles around a little bit and does things.
You're not coming from the side that much. You're coming from the top.
Yeah, I can't.
Ooh, I saw it.
That.
I saw it. Amazing.
Okay?
So I have to sort of go from the top a little bit.
Okay, do you want to do a little close, see a little close up of that? And then I'm going to do one more as a demo so that you can watch it. And then I'm going to turn you loose. Although Alexis might have to go over to the computer right now for 5 minutes and order our lunch. And we will return. Oh, and here's another thing that we'll talk about. Is it like a lot of times when I'm doing stuff like this, people will be like, you do one at a time. It's like, let me tell you. If you honestly think you can pay attention to more than one thing at a time, I say this with all the love in the world, you're wrong. None of us can truly in that moment. And so what I find with a lot of things is that when I'm looking at this one, the one over here has moved, and then the solder flows and it's wrong. And I can't tell you for how many years I'd be like, I can do it. And I have finally realized I cannot. And it's actually faster to just pay, do the one, and then I just work my way around. Maybe you can.
Please, I'm lucky if I can do
I'm just
one.
saying, I don't want to speak for everyone, but like, it's like a guarantee, you know what I mean? When you're looking at this one, the one over here does something, and then whatever. So that's why I do one at a time.
This is a good project. There's a lot of things to be
Yes.
learned in this project.
A lot of making bezels, a lot of soldering, going to be a lot of settings, and it's going to just be like,
It might have been harder to put
Yes,
it's done, you know?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Okay, so I line up the solder on the side, push it together. Poke it if necessary.
I don't have the tweezer control for sure.
But here's the thing though. Do you notice though when I'm doing that? My hand is here. Because people are always like, you have great hand control. I'm like, I very rarely am I doing anything freehand. I always am like,
You're using your wrist as a mole stick.
and then, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, I drink a shitload of coffee. I don't know about you guys. Like, I had that donut. Are you kidding me? Mom, like, so it's really more, I think, about just bracing yourself and being very deliberate about your motions rather than like, I have to have beautiful, perfect hand control to do this. Okay, so that looks good. When I dry it, if it moves, I poke it back in place. And then we're gonna put the last couple granules on that. Oh.
I'm still waiting. I can't do it because I'm so close that I can't do it.
Solder flowing is one of the more beautiful things in the whole world. Take a quick shot there. Good. it's possible I'll beef up that seam, but I think I'm gonna just have you go ahead, you know what I mean, get them all attached, and then if we want to add a little more here or there,
Okay.
you know what I mean, we will, but
And then we do have to discuss the